Oh, I can hear something. Hey, there she is. You're on the ball straight away. Third person on. Hello, by the way, to those two people that were really on the ball and came on just after I had time to say hello. Carry on, Vivianette. So that was really quick. Delpha, hello. Today you have been busy and eating burgers. How has that gone?
Really cool. It's gone really well. Thank you very much. And you? How's your day been?
Oh, do you know what? It's been one of those struggling days, but this is the thing in life. We need these things that keeps us resilient, like talking to awesome people. So you're one of my methods of being resilient today, Delpha. I'll be honest. So there you go. I'm smiling now, but I wasn't in this morning when I had to cancel work. So yeah, no, I'm feeling great now. Thank you very much.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Super. Delpha, if people were to look you up online, as I have done a lot, the first thing that's really explicit is that you are a painter. Actually, not just a painter with oils, with watercolours, with ink, with something called beginning with B that I'd never heard of before. I thought I'll ask you that a different time. All these different materials.
That's all it is. Shed paint.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, there you go. This is why I'm particularly interested to speak to you, because I'm a painter myself. CVIVArts Fine Art. But to look at somebody like you who is thriving and obviously very comfortable in your practice, you have your own style, very honed, which I find really difficult to find. I'm still searching for mine. And you know what, I could talk about you for a long time, so I'm going to try and keep it brief.
You know, there isn't a style. It's a never-ending experimentation. Although I'm trying to focus on you know, having something that's recognizably me, which feels good.
Yeah, well, it's nice to watch. I didn't mean to pigeonhole you there.
Oh,
you are really experimental.
It's you know, apparently it's really good. It's underrated, you know, not being in a pigeonhole.
but that's a nice segue for me, actually, because what I was going to say was that what's explicit is that you're a painter, but also you're a writer and a performer. So clearly, you know, journeying through art in lots of different pathways. How would you describe yourself as a worker in the art sector, Delpha?
A worker. Yeah, I'm a worker. I really work at things. I've got lots to say about that in terms of being resilient. And in the theatre of the self, which I think the writing that you mentioned, I think I realised that I'm not really a writer. I'm a bit crap, actually. But I worked at it. I worked really hard, and that project, Theatre of the Self, was really something that we'll talk about some more as well, I hope. But I burnt my diaries, so it was a dramatic creative act that I did as a performance art conceptual thing, and that was really wanted to convey and explore psychological narrative reconstruction. And in terms of burning diaries, I didn't burn them all. It wasn't all about destruction. It was actually about reconstruction, that how in changing the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, we can survive trauma and improve our everyday mental health. So as an arts practitioner, you know, for me, the word resilience is a really interesting one. You know, it's about time and the self, and how we're continually changing the constructs in the past and present.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, because you've said about 5 things there I want to follow up on. Really interesting. The most interesting one being that you was talking about burning your diaries as a performative act, as a reconstruction of psychological pathways. And that makes me think, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you are changing default thinking, or you are writing your past again, in order to be able to put yourself into a clearer present or a clearer future. So yes. in a way, that seems to me like a method in order to be able to be a resilient. So you are doing a performance piece to help with facing future challenges. Is that around resilience?
It wasn't actually about the word resilience. But I think there are aspects of that conceptual art project, because of course no one was in that meadow in in that place with me. It was documented, and it wasn't documented very well. I had a terrible mobile phone. I took some selfies, and they're pretty bad actually. But so it wasn't one of those kind of dramatic, you know, performance pieces. So it was performed in that it's an action that I decided that I would do, and that was really, it gives, the title gives it away. Theatre of the Self is about our performance of the self, and the way that we continually reascribe meaning from our past, our stories, whatever we wrote in our diaries, or whatever, you know, the stories are that we tell to other people, and we do that from where we are now. So I did the project I performed it, if you like, in 2017, and so it's a continually changing thing. Our stories are continually, our lives are theatres, stage, and realizing that we enact our lives through those stories rather than hearing it from others, having it decided by others, or than having it decided by the negative voices in our head that blame, criticize, and all truth is subjective. So I like using the term resilience when we talk about mental health and really telling our stories, because we're constantly living in our stories, and we can retell our stories differently, because our truth is whatever we say it is.
Yes, I really like this. A lot of things coming up there, but the main thing is this idea of, okay, so other people can script your life. I'm just using that term because you mentioned theatre. Oh. And I'm seeing the stage. So other people can script your life for you. External influences can dictate how you feel about yourself. You can have a written script from the past, or you can rewrite the script. And you're saying that you like the term resilience, which is really, really interesting. What do you think it's useful for people to consciously consider resilience and do acts which strengthen your resilience, acts of resilience, and is it essential to be aware of resilience and work on resilience as an art practitioner?
I think it's a really interesting concept, and you know, the first thing that came into my mind was that song. I don't know if young people probably won't know it, but it's, you know, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and you know, that whole premise of yes, we can do it. That sort of, you know, Rosie the Riveter sort of attitude. But for the song, it's great, but it's still quite a kind of aggressive, tough guy stance, isn't it? You know, I don't really like that aggressive implication that it's all on us, you know, because life isn't a boot camp. It's about having fun. It's also about being passionate about what you do, and laughing at one's own failures. So I'm
so sorry, Delpha, I'm gonna interrupt you again because you're saying loads of things that's making my brain go into fireworks. First of all, you said that it's not a boot camp, like resilience. Resilience, the definition I'm paraphrasing now, is to meet challenges head on and meet challenges quickly. And you said, well, life isn't like that. Life isn't a boot camp. You're not ready with the boots to sort of go straight away. And just because I struggle with that as well. And I'll just very, very briefly, I'm going through something at the moment, which is probably the hardest thing that I'm ever going through in my life. And I'm still going through it. And sometimes I have days where I just haven't got the energy. I'm numb. I haven't got the motivation. I have to cancel work. And I've learned to surrender to that. I've learned to say, this is what my body feels like doing it at the time. If I try and push myself, as soon as I see somebody, it's going to go wrong. You know, I'm going to get angry, I'm going to burst into tears, whatever. And I think this idea of having to be resilient, and especially telling students you've got to be resilient, is quite damaging. I think we have to listen to our body. Do you also agree with, or do you have any thoughts on that resilience can be free flowing and it's an instinctive thing?
I really feel for you, and I think that's right. I thought long and hard about it, and I thought resilience in itself, there's nothing wrong with that concept. I think balancing it, isn't it? And it's actually finding your own stories, but finding your own sort of interpretation of that word. So but you're taking self-care, and I'm you know, I'm really glad to hear that, because it is about looking after ourselves. I've been historically, probably hence the whole cathartic process of dealing with my historically, I'm not good at looking after myself. So, you know, firstly, for me, it's about being kind to ourselves. It's not being at war with us. We have to learn to be kind to ourselves and accept, you know, that sometimes we're not that great. And secondly, we need to surround ourselves with supportive people. So people who enable us to find our best stories. So personally, it's taken me a really long time to realize what I need to survive. And maybe survival is what we're talking about as much as resilience, you know, the ability to survive. So I wouldn't say I'm a resilient person, I would say I've survived. There's probably another song in there. Anyway, there's lots of songs in there. I'm interpreting this as self-care, being gentle with myself. I'm not a perfectionist, thankfully, but I am a very anxious person. So I've had issues with mental health and depression, and learning to be gentle, you know, like the Loo Roll advert, is really really important. So as regards my arts practice, I think I've been resilient in my life and my arts practice, because I'm deeply committed to making art, and I'm passionate about trying to find ways to carry on doing that. I'm passionate about making work that's about making men and carers visible, and revealing a common condition of invisibility and equality, so that we can make that change together, you know. And it's not about being that cutthroat world where, you know, it's much more about being inclusive, creating caring economies where we're kind to ourselves, we're supportive of others, and we include other people in our support bubble. I'll say in our gang. There's another song.
Yeah, I've got an 80s disco in my head at the moment. Apart from the Survive Gloria Gaynor. Was it Gloria Gaynor? Anyway. Yeah. I just want to sort of wrap up, not wrap up because I'm sure we'll touch upon it again, and we should, but your Theatre of the Self autobiographical writings, as we've already been on the fringe of sort of looking at that, art teaches us, and art can be a therapeutic act, and it's art that teaches us there you go. And people can find details on your website, delphahudson.co.uk, which your details are also on the
do is Google Theatre of the Self, and you'll find a really lovely website, because there are only 100 limited edition copies. There are still some left, but the thrust of the project was I wanted to share these ideas about these tricks that society plays on us in terms of believing who we are, and the fact that we're actually many different people, and we have many different lives, and we can choose which one we live into. So the website, it's all on there.
Oh wow, okay, that's another really interesting angle. You're saying how almost like, in order to be able to society forces us, obviously I'm not going to personify society, it's not a person sort of going, you need to be stereotypical like this, or you have this job so you must have these characteristics, but in order to be able to be understood by people, because they need that clarification, it feels like you have to make certain straight and strict decisions about yourself and about who you are, and you have to be quite unflexible. So that's really interesting. And if you, I don't know if I'm understanding you correctly, so do correct me if I'm just thinking about what it reminds me of. So how we have to make decisions about ourselves very quickly, a bit like facing resilience apparently very quickly. But it sounds like your book is saying that actually you are constantly on a search of the self, especially as an experimental artist. Why fix yourself and indeed a lot of actors like Vanessa Redgrave do this when they're approaching acting. They don't fix a character. Even on their last stage show, they're still finding the character because it's more vulnerable and it's more revealing and it's more exciting. Is that what you're talking about? Have I misunderstood you?
Yeah, no, that's certainly some of the aspects of theatre of the self. There's lots of kind of layers to it. I think one of the additional things about it being life as theatre, and this kind of array of the cast. We're a cast of thousands, all of us, in that we have the ability to move around, and we're almost different people at different times in our life, and actually we can also draw on alter egos. I certainly have. I'm actually, won't believe it, but incredibly sort of shy private person who, when I was doing performance and live arts a long time ago, I would, because I really believed in what I was doing as a way of communicating directly with people, that the performances that I made in the street or wherever, they were, it's almost like I drew on somebody that one of the people that I, because that's not really me, but I can that's why theatre is so important, because it reminds us that actually we are capable of being many different people. So yeah.
Sorry, Delpha, I'm just going to trip you again. You say such interesting stuff. Do you think there's an authenticity to allowing yourself to adapt to different situations as you come into them? So allowing yourself to be vulnerable and authentic. Do you think that's a very healthy and nurturing and productive way to go? Or do you think it's better to script, who you are before you go into situations?
Now, that's an interesting one. I've got quite a few things I want to talk about, hopefully later. But I think it's always that balancing, isn't it? Because it's neither one nor the other. It is a case of you need to be, to be authentic. It can make you vulnerable to fit into the people around you, what's happening around you. You adapt naturally. I suppose one of the main parts of that is that being vulnerable, you can actually rely on one alter egos maybe to come in and rescue you. That there's nothing wrong with employing these alter egos, like this person here now, who's quite happy talking online, although I've done some talks, which again is another thing that I'd like to talk about. But a major part of my personal resilience is my support structure. So sorry, you don't mind if I take resilience?
No, keep going. Right. When you're talking, all these light bulbs are coming up, and I want to ask questions, but I'd rather hear you talk more interesting stuff, and if I want to reel them in later on, I can.
No, I just felt it's very important to share that it's taken me a really long time to find people to challenge and support me, and notice it's challenge and support. It's always these things in balance, really. So my husband is entirely unconditionally supportive, and we've been together 10 years, and that's made a completely different it's made all the difference to my life. So it that outside voice, that other headspace, somebody who listens but also gives me the ability to see beyond the unpleasant voices in my head. So what resilience for me is looking out for other people who are supportive, you have the same values and same interests, who actually reflect back to me who I want to be, or one of the I want to be. So part of the idea was me, obviously, by being very fortunate, having some funding to be mentored by Kerry Hand, and it's her phrase, what tribe to be in, and joining a group of people, being with a group of people and having that support. Then I've been a bit of a loner, I admit, in the past. I've had, I've got a few friends, who I know are always there, who share my of empathy, change, and equality. So, you know, discovering that resilience is a life raft with friends and supporters. It's not a life jacket where I bob along on my own going, yay. And that when I thought about it, it's just incredibly important.
That's the thing that came up the most with Alice Bradshaw's research, actually, when she was interviewing artists. That the idea of supervisors, support networks, people to talk through, or people who've walked in the same steps as the steps that you're taking, the path you're taking, is the best way of helping you to face challenges, and the best way to keep you going, because you feel understood. And like you say, it's you identify with those people and those people identify with you. So yeah, this idea of community, which I'm really pleased is getting bigger and bigger. Well, unless I'm just now coming onto social media and noticing it. But during the pandemic, if that's one thing that we can take, is that there are loads of groups now that you can tune into and just talk and, you know, get different opinions, and opinions that sometimes you feel you're isolated and that you're the only one that think these things. And then you go and advise and you say, have I made a mistake? And they go, oh no, that happens in theatre, that happens in art, you know, you're doing it just right, or try this next time. And you're like, oh, it's not just me then. Because it can be isolating as an artist. Yeah. What are the biggest challenges that you've had? Because you are a successful artist. What are the biggest challenges that you've had getting there? I want to know about your journey.
It doesn't feel like that, especially, but challenges. We're on to challenges. Let me just have a little think, because I've got some really good notes. I'm just going to remind myself about the challenges.
That's absolutely fine. One of the challenges, I'm just going to talk about a few challenges while you find your notes. As me starting out as an artist, is the difficulty of shifting your brain from the element of competition, but to not being competitive and critical of yourself, but to embracing other people and embracing yourself and being proud of yourself. I think that's quite a difficult thing. Have you found your notes, love?
Yeah, well, I just was relating it to that specific question, which I've already forgotten. What was the question again?
What have your biggest challenges been? Right from the conception of I'm going to be a visual artist to where you are now.
Yeah, all of them really. I know that I might sound kind of quite middle class, although if I speak to you for long enough, I'll suddenly have a Yorkshire accent, because you know. Yeah, I tend to be a bit alien-like and just join in. I've always done that, which is a bit. But you know, I have been on benefits. I've lived on the edge, you know, to my last 20p, and that's before credit cards. Maybe, you know, I've been deeply in debt. So it's been really hard. Look, we all struggle with those supporting sustainable issues, and yet despite those challenges, it's really, art has also really been a great aid for my mental health. So it's always been a real challenge, because you know, I have been a single working mum, and I've run into I had a studio at one, which I used to visit for about at some point in the day, run in, do something again, and you know, and I started painting with bitumen just because it was quick, cheap. so a major part of my, you know, ecology for resilience, as I've decided it is now, you know, because that sounds good, in ecology, is looking out for those, looking out for people who support me and make me feel like it's really worthwhile. That it's also, where I've also lost my place. That, you know, I do care about what people think. So what I have to cling on to, despite any of those, the challenges that we feel around us, it is, you know, that my intentions are I may not be what I'd like to be, but you know, having other voices around me that say everyone fails, gets it wrong, you know, you did your best, or you it overcomes the challenges of self-doubt, you know, the voices in your head. You got that, that's all your fault. I think you're an idiot, you were so stupid. And it's really hard because social media has made those pressures ever more real. And you know, and one of the other fallacies, besides the fact that, you know, we're just a single self, we're just always the same, the other fallacy that sometimes we get pulled into is that some other people are just brilliant and they're genius, and we kind of believe in that innate genius, don't we? That you know, we know from that saying by that great scientist, can't remember his name. It's 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration, but genius, but genius, you know, when you see so many other people on social media, and because and the other people we meet who are so good at self-promotion, aren't they? You know, they scarcely know they're doing it. They're so convincing. We've all met people that they're able to put a spin on something, and you know, just occasionally you think, oh, actually, you know what, I think it's great at saying they're great, you know, and there are people out there like that, and it comes to naturally. You know, we all know somebody who draws like it's a photograph, who remembers and writes so well, and other people around us that we see now on Facebook that Midas touch, you know, everything turns to gold, and sometimes, you know, they're just in the right place at the right time. Social media can be a real it's marvelous keeping us in touch with everyone else and enabling us at the same time as we have to kind of live feelings, you know, that moment where you know, you post something and then someone else posts it the next week and they get 100 zillion likes. So it's in terms of challenges, I think one of the things that I personally have been able to overcome, and I'm very fortunate, is actually just to try and stop those comparing feelings, you know. Did you ever see Black Mirror?
I didn't. My partner did, and it's just something that for about 6 months I was going, must watch Black Mirror, and then it got taken over by something else, and I forgot about it.
But there's the episode. I don't know if you haven't seen it. There's one episode of Black Mirror, probably quite an early series because I'm only catching up with it now. But you know, that episode with the futuristic implant, where everyone's life chances, opportunities is all based on a kind of Facebook app. It's not called Facebook. It's like an app, and it was totally scary because it was so close to the truth that you know that there is this tendency now to be everything is being sort of judged, and so one of the things about being resilient is actually really having a sense of what you're and what you want to do, and how you are different from other people.
So self-appreciation and staying true to the self. I'm just going to simplify all that wonderful stuff that you've just said, because it sounds like there's a thing about confidence in, if we just stay in the realm of art for a moment. I completely identify with what you're saying, and I've struggled with what you're saying absolutely massively. But I think we can tend to lose a grip on the reality of things when we're artists, because our passion is so great, and our desire and our want to do it, to express ourselves in this way and be recognised, is so great, and so many people want to do it. And of course, people don't view it as a career. People view it as something that you do as a hobby outside of your main work. So it's so easy to fall into that trap of that person is more successful than me because they've got it and I haven't got it. And it's so easy to label what you do as in the negative and label what other people do in the positive. So if you're saying that you've broken that barrier and you are starting to realize that there isn't a truth or reality in that competition, that's really nice. And that's something that I'm trying to get through myself. But it's difficult not to be competitive. It's difficult to be self-compassionate. It's difficult to appreciate yourself with others.
Yeah, and again, sorry, I probably just keep coming back to the word balance. Maybe we'll replace balance as a word for this evening. Yeah, the truth is that we do kind of compete, and there's something relatively healthy about that. If you know, because it drives us. We're passionate about what we do as artists. And we have to learn how to be good at things we want to do. We have to be prepared to really work at it. So I'll share a story about the fact that I play accordion.
Oh, as well as writing, performing and painting.
I always wanted to, and when I was 50 I was given an accordion, so of course bloody well got to do something with that. You know, you can't get given an accordion and do nothing. So I practiced every day, and I'd always written songs, and secretly I'd always wanted to be in a band, but I was shy, I was rubbish, I'd got a lisp, and whenever I tried to perform I was so nervous. You know, you can't sing when you're nervous. So I decided I could work at it. So, and also my supportive partner who gave me the accordion, he actually really got me to understand that this performing thing did, you know, it wasn't about me being good, although actually I am quite good now, or impressing people, or even what they thought. You know, it was a gift to other people, and that was such a huge lesson. So I have gigged. I'm not gigging at the moment. I have gigged, which is huge fun. I'll even go busking just for the, you know, just because I like to share something that I've learned how to do. So it's a story really about the fact that, you know, you work at something because you love it, and then you want to give a gift to someone else. That's coming from somewhere else, because suddenly you're not competing with other people. You're, you know, so that whole accordion story it was a live lesson for everything that I did, you know, especially my arts practice. So I love sharing ideas. I'm not a writer, but I worked at it. I've always loved painting. I've always painted secretly, even when I was other stuff. But now I'm better because I paint every day, you know. And yes, my life circumstances have changed. I still do a lot of part-time, my crap jobs to help me get going. You know, I'm a retired teacher, but I still have to do stuff in Cornwall to pay bills, and I do that because I plan and I work, and you know, and actually see what I do as an important thing to share with other people. So that resilience is the joy of the gift, really, and believing that you've got something to say.
It sounds like there's a thing about that, not just that art, well, I'm thinking specifically of theatre, but art as well, is the right conditions in order to be able to practice compassion for the self and others, because you need a watcher. You know, in the theatre, you need a watcher. If you're delivering a painting, you need a watcher. You have to have an audience, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And if you want to nurture yourself as a human being, to be compassionate, even though we can do it when we go down to the shops, but what I'm saying, it's the perfect setup. It's like, I'm just thinking as a trained drama teacher, that in that drama classroom, I'm always saying to the students that drama is about mutual respect. And actually, you can tell the difference in a school that's got a strong drama department or a strong art department from a school that hasn't got a strong drama department or a strong art department, because it allows you to be able to strengthen those skills of being, I'm going to be very, you know, street about it, an awesome person. but it's hard to tap into that practice of doing it for, yourself and doing it because you deserve to enjoy the art, and doing it for other people because they deserve to enjoy your art. But it sounds like that's what you're saying, is that's a fantastic method for meeting the challenges, because you're doing it for others and you're doing it for yourself, and what's better than that? So that's a fantastic method. The art as sort of the performative act, as well, as you've mentioned, is a way of keeping going and being resilient. And it sounds like this sort of free flowing, instinctive kind of methodology to practice as well. Not just kind of like I'm now going to document this work. I'm now going to burn this work. I'm now going to do a performative act. I'm now going to try different materials with my painting. But it seems to be threaded so inherently through your practice, like resilient, and maybe not in a conscious way. I'm going to be resilient by doing this, but it's just sounds like you've looked back on resilient acts that you've done without consciously thinking about it. So is there a thing about just allowing yourself to be authentic through your practice, and then realizing after the fact what you did, that was useful?
Say that again.
Is there something about just not being not consciously trying to do resilient acts, but just moving through your practice in a very instinctive and authentic way, and then realizing after you've done these acts and after you've done certain things in your practice, realizing after that what it was that was helpful and helped you with resilience?
Yeah, I think you know, so the word resilient is not one I've really thought about much before, and actually it was only when I started to do a little bit of homework that I realized it's something that is such a big thing. And and policymakers are used in a way that I'm slightly suspicious of, because it can be part of a devious psychology that says you can do it if you work for it. You can do it. Radio 1 the other day, accidentally, sorry, I don't, not a Radio 1 listener, but who knows, occasionally they play a tune, but somebody came on, inspirational, you can do it, you can be anything you want to be, and at the same time as saying presenting yourself, learning how to talk, all of those things, and behaviors, not necessarily naturally good at things, but you can learn do them. At the same time as saying that, it makes me anxious that policymakers or generally that people say you can do anything. It's not always entirely true. Be more confident, you can change yourself for the better, but you can't do everything on your own. There are institutions, power structures, racism, sexism, and there are things that have to change before there are equal opportunities. I'm really fortunate that I have been able to be in a position to make art, and yes, I've made some sacrifices, and there've been some privations on the, I live poor, privations along the way, at the same time as I could choose to do so. What my practice, one of the things that is very important in terms of, say, thinking about resilience is thinking about a resilient practice also wants to change the systems and the institutions to make things more equal, so that there are opportunities there for so in believing in yourself, and believing yourself to be a conduit for change, that comes to a point where there's no choice. You just have to keep working at the things that mean your voice will be heard. Yeah.
So I suppose if we're looking at this as a circle of people around yourself, first of all, you've got the circle of the people who you kind of choose to have a stronger relationship with, like your partner, like your friends, like artists who you might collaborate with, and those are the people that really help you to keep going. But then outside of that, which is not something that I've spoken to anybody about yet in terms of resilience, outside of that is the job of society to offer support to help you to face things with confidence. So there's something about the people in society, and then it sounds like that with people in society, whoever's job that is, we can talk about that in a minute, because society is full of lots of different sectors of different people. You've got the government and you've got other sort of separate organisations, but maybe there's something about them supporting individuals of any type of artists, non-artists, etc., to help resilience. But then it sounds like that you're saying that part of your art is to give a wave to society to make them realise it's their job as well. Is that what I'm picking upon?
Yeah. Well, again, both. You know, the idea that we can change ourselves, we can think about our stories in different ways, we can rewrite ourselves, we can draw on these, you know, the various core strengths, we can draw on friends, but we are also asking government structures to change, because whatever they say about supporting artists, and obviously to some extent that's changed during COVID, maybe, you know, they're still saying we recognise you as an artist, but not you as an artist. That, you know, or we know that there's racism, sexism. It still exists. You know, there's no getting around the fact that despite all the women shows about women, galleries, fantastic galleries showing women's work, that you know, who are the highest paid artists? Men. So we know that those inequalities exist, and what you know, that the devious psychology perhaps in people who say you can be anything you want to be. The fact is, you can try, but you might also have to change the things around you to be. And I think that is, in terms of resilience, is something that can be constant in your practice, which is actually, I'm passionate about what I do because I really like to see changes. You know, one of the things that I was working on, and I wrote my MA dissertation on, was about mothers and art. You know, this is pre-internet really, and I couldn't really find any other artists that were making work about motherhood, you know, apart from Bobby Baker, who's fantastic, and you know, Mary Kelly, and at the time I just was not, and you know, to discover that there's a whole movement of mother artists now, and those representations of the maternal that we've never seen, you know, representations that are all, you know, not binary of Madonna or evil mother, that they're really, and that whole movement is really, really significant. What's important about it is that mother artists have a responsibility to ensure that they're not just thinking about how they might make art as a mother, but also because mother artists didn't exist years ago. You know, you just go and you did it. And that's not right. They're changing things at the same time as, let's hope that mother artists will keep changing, and they will keep actually broadening that out and giving some of those that benefit to people that are in the luxurious, I say luxurious, the luxurious position of being an artist.
No, that's all fantastic points, and of course you and I are a member of the Facebook Creative Mothers Group, which is just incredible. Like the amount of fantastic work and the variety of work that these women are doing is just like overwhelming. And I'd never known anything before that. You know, before the Creative Mothers Group.
If you look around, it's massive. You know, you can't. Well, it's you can't even begin. That's the iceberg. It's absolutely amazing. I've got. I'm going after this. I'm going to pop into a virtual opening in I think America. I don't know. It's American time anyway. And because there's a show that Emily Zars has set up about maternal chronics, so maternal time, and I've got a piece of work in that, so I'm going to find out more about it when I pop in. But it's a great project. So there are just masses of, you know, Helen Sargent, and if you haven't checked out Helen Sargent's project, then do. There's just just amazing changes, and artists have made those changes. And it was wonderful hearing Alice talk last week about the collaborations she's involved with. You know, if I'm terrible at collaborating. You know, I always kind of want to do my way. or I'm a bit of a loner, you know, really. I'm a bit neurodiverse.
Well, I mean, if you're used to developing yourself as an individual in your art practice, and you've learned how to be resilient and meet challenges solo, then it is difficult. It requires a different kind of resilience, and it is difficult to, I suppose, put down the gauntlet and share ideas and compromise and collaborate. I find that really, really tough. Do you know what? Just before we move on, I've just realised, guess what, Delpha? Last week I had an alarm clock in the room, so I knew what time it was. I've got no idea what time we're on.
I'm telling you, I've just looked at the kitchen clock. See, I've got all northern. No, I'm just looking at the clock. Sorry, and it's yeah, we've got about 12 minutes left.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm
going to keep asking you to look at the kitchen clock. Oh, but there you go. 1947. Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah.
Duncan Evans music.
So,
I just want to take this opportunity to say, if anybody wants to ask Delpha a question, please do. Please ask Delpha a question.
We'll just be talking, won't we?
No, exactly. Do you know, while we're talking about that piece that you've got in that online exhibition, and oh my gosh, you've done so much work that has just been to so many places. I'm like, whoa, this is inspirational. It's really great. Just to think about your pieces for a minute. One of my favourites that comes to mind, and guess what? I'll probably get the title of it wrong now. The Home of Domestic Appliances. I think it is.
History, yeah. All right.
Oh, is it the history of domestic appliances?
Complete departure for me, that painting. Everyone really likes it because, you know, it might have some mixed media underneath, but there's no bitumen.
Oh, bitumen being this kind of oil that is made with. Just explain bitumen again.
So bitumen is something that I started working with because I really liked the kind of the mark making, that dripping something sticky like treacle gives you. So it's, you know, it's like shed paint, so it's cheap as well, but also I liked it as a kind of medium for sort of exploring figures. And after about 10 or 15 years, I've built it up so that I can draw really quite well with it. But it's almost accidental because you can never get it perfect. And I love the fact that you couldn't get it perfect. So so when I work on canvas, I still do use it. I love it. But rather than obviously watercolor, you know, something I've been doing the last year has been really freeing, because actually the bitumen to a certain extent was kind of constraining what I could do. So now I'm doing more. It's interesting you mentioned that painting anyway, because I'm doing more masses of figures, because that's almost impossible to do on a really large canvas. And doing it, you know, historical references in there, but also like hundreds of women and babies doing crazy things. So
this sounds like a bit of an angelic Hieronymus Bosch piece. But
no, they're all having a really hard time. Well, about my painting. Well, the thing about my painting, these kind of domestic dystopias, as I think of them, is actually that you're kind of sort of laughing at the fact that everyone says, "Oh, look, lovely," you know, parenthood is just so wonderful, and it is great, but it's also really gritty, isn't it? And it's difficult. So I like darkness, you know. I listen to sad music in my studio, like Radiohead and things, and it's really important to kind of, you know, embrace the sad, you know, and maybe be a little bit angry about the fact that, you know, carers and often women, it's so unequal, and obviously been a lot of changes this last year. Hopefully we're starting to really kind of appreciate home life, domestic life, but also, you know, some of my work has been quite dark recently because it's been, you know, makes reference to domestic violence as well.
Oh, okay. It seems to me like that narrative of, like you mentioned, dystopia. My memory of dystopia meaning after an apocalypse, a dystopian world, what's left. So not an image with positive connotations. So, and you mentioned domestic violence, and do you know what? I've not picked these up on your paintings explicitly as soon as I've looked at them. So I think there's something. The reason why I liked the history of domestic appliances was because initially the title didn't seem to fit, and I'm like, oh, I like that I can't see any domestic, it's not literal, so I like that I can't see any domestic appliances, because domestic appliances are practical. They're something that you need and use to keep you grounded and to keep you practically and logically moving through life, but yet there were people that were floating in the air. So is this a sarcastic painting? So it's like can you talk a bit about how they can be abstract and non-literal? I really like that.
Well, they are abstracted women. So if you look at the painting, it does look like a little bit like historical typolo or something. But these figures that I do are never literal. So yes, I steal a little bit from history and use that. But at the same time, what I also love playing with is I love playing with these figures, and these figures, you know, in calling it history of domestic objects, you know, there were no objects on the painting except for the women, with you know, that lovely central panel with some, you know, some quite abstracted, you know, like could be three men, you know, could be three religious type men in the center, but you know, in a way, it's laughing at the objectification of women as domestic appliances.
Right.
That's probably rather a literal idea.
I'm just going to pause you just because we've just got a comment here. Leeds Lawn has said, Delpha, really appreciating your reflection on relationships between care and art and how we value artists and creative processes.
That's really nice. Thank you very much. I've got so much more to say, but we've got 5 minutes.
Oh no! Do you want to? I'm going to put my questions there. Do you know what? All the questions that I had, I don't think I've looked at it once because we haven't needed to. Do you want to take the last 5 minutes just rounding up your thoughts on resilience, or talking about your work and where people can find it, Delpha?
What? Say that again. What was the question?
I think it was about 3 questions rolled into one.
Yeah.
Do you want to just take the last 5 minutes with your last thoughts, Delpha?
Okay. So these were my top 3 things that I was going to say. So one, in terms of making performance or work in a resilient way, my top tip in a performance situation was to make a score. So as you know, Theatre of the Self, look at it, is a simple score, you know, a bit like Alison Knowles, look her up. She wrote, you know, how to make a salad. You know, just look up performance scores. It's absolutely brilliant. So writing a score is a bit like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. It was, you know, 1, read a diary, 2, keep, 3, burn the rest, 4, take a photo. And it's a great way of making work. I mean, it could apply for anything really, as well as theatre-based practice or live art. But making a score really helps. If you make a score, you've bloody got to do it. You've written that score. You've thought about it. You've kept it in your ideas book. Keep ideas book. That's it. Things that you'll probably never do, but just in case someone asks you, you've always got something on the back burner. Always, you know, the thing about a score is do it. So as I'm processing and I do a lot of reading and stealing ideas, I always almost write things down as a, you know, step 1, step 2, and that's one thing that I think is really important. So in terms of the resilience that we've been talking about today, you know, I think amongst all the quotes and pictures on the studio wall, there's a reminder about being transformative and non-conformative. You know, I'm not a rebellious person. I wish I had been. It's one of my main regrets in life, but I've learned to live with that story that I'm not a rebellious person. But Martin Luther King in 1963 said, the world is a dire need of a society of the creatively maladjusted. It may well be that the salvation of the world lies in the hands of such a creative minority. So I love the idea that that it's okay to be maladjusted, that we can find other people, other support networks, we can balance changing ourselves with changing the world, and you know, we can work for that, and we can be prepared to fail, but we can laugh at our failures.
How lovely. The performance score, when you were speaking about that, I thought, because of course performances a lot of the time are about rules, and usually you can explore and experiment more if you've got a simple rule in place. So that rule of a performance score, that objective score to see you through and away from the internal and more on keeping going. I was thinking about how you can pattern that score to address the balance of the kind of things that you might need to satisfy as you go through a performance process. So I'm definitely going to think more about that. That's fantastic. And what a quote to finish on. And this idea of being open to change also can be in so many different contexts, you know, in a small group performance context, or you know, when you're going out into the wider world and you're visiting a number of different places and a number of different contexts, being open and not maybe a little bit vulnerable to finding yourself and who you are, and enjoying people. So that idea of being open to change, and when you do meet new ideas and you do meet what people categorize as failures, see it as an opportunity to laugh, and see it as something that happens to everybody else, and that it's just a learning process. I feel like I'm just trying to simplify all these fantastic things that you said, but I really like those two last final thoughts. That's really lovely about people being open to change and having a clear objective sort of rule, a performance score for performance creating. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to finish off?
No, just thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real journey to explore this work and to explore quite a few different notions about my own practice, and I'm absolutely delighted to be invited to come and chat.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted that you said yes. There's been so much in that chat, and obviously I will be posting it for people to watch in their own time. It will be on YouTube. It will also be on Instagram as well. And the Theatre of the Self book sounds so interesting. There you go, the autobiographical book that marks your process of resilience and marks your process of development and you know, how you've sort of faced yourself and how you've continued. But also, if people can also see, if they go to delphahudson.co.uk, all the amazing artwork that you do, as well as your writing.
Sorry, it's on delphahudsonartist.co.uk.
Yeah. Sorry, delphahudsonartist.co.uk. Thank you.
I've been told I need to just have one website, but the other website is the Theatre of the Self now. So yeah, but you'll find me because no one else is called Delpha.
Absolutely, I know. What an amazing name. I changed my name to try and stand out, but you know, that's I believe that was given to you at birth, so that's brilliant.
Brilliant, but I love your name.
An absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure to talk to you. Really? And I definitely want to talk to you at some point in future, because I feel like we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. Oh, have a fantastic viewing of your work in this new online exhibition that you're going to be doing after this.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming, and anyone who sees this in the future.
Yes, thank you everybody, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.